This is Earth Sky Woman with your host, Tammy Brunk. Happy Sagittarius total solar eclipse. It was exact about 45 minutes ago. So here I am in that window of activation. And I'm going to be speaking into the energies of this coming week, which are really a powerful portal opened through this eclipse, but continuing through the winter solstice. I'm going to do a separate podcast on the solstice because those energies also are so big. So, wow, beautiful soul family, Earth Sky Woman community. We are rounding the bend on 2020. This powerful eclipse portal, I'm going to talk about the eclipse because the energies are going to be with us for a while. The sun and the moon came together at 10:17 Central today. That's Monday, December 14th. That eclipse swept through, is continuing as I speak to sweep through the southern portion, the feet of Abya, Turtle Island, near Chile, Patagonia, that region of the world. Another activation of Turtle Island. And what some other features of this eclipse that make it so incredibly powerful, again, through the exact moment of sun, moon coming together and continuing through the coming days, is that the moon was at perigee about a day and a half ago, meaning that the moon is incredibly close to the earth right now. So this is a super mega new moon, basically, this total solar eclipse. And just as if that weren't already a big deal, first of all, it's with the South Node. I'm going to talk a lot more about that soon. Also, it is this eclipse is happening, it is with Mercury. So the collective mind, our consciousness is really steeped in the magic, the alchemy of this larger eclipse portal. So it's something that each of us has access to as downloads. Also to know, it is in the portion of the sky that is known as Aesclepius or Ophiucus, the great serpent bearer or the dream healer in the sky. If you want to understand where this part of the sky, it's a massive constellation that really straddles the degrees of 20 Scorpio through 14 Capricorn. I just realized personally that I have Venus, Mercury, Mars, Sun, and Neptune, Midheaven, North Node, and Jupiter, all within the constellation of Ophiucus personally, which speaks a lot to my passion for being an active dreamer of our collective reality, for being a visionary, a vision seeker, and a vision speaker. And many of you also will have planets and important points in this portion of the sky, but we've got the sun and the moon in a total solar eclipse aligned with a very important star in Ophiucus, which is the star, it's Ras Al Hag. You can see it as the third eye chakra or the crown chakra of the great dream healer in the sky. And so there's that activation. It's at perigee, and also the eclipse is with the Mercury, and also it's in a trine to Mars. Also, we have at this time Venus at the very late degrees of Scorpio, having just crossed the been activated by the moon at the sacral chakra or the womb chakra, moon gate or rose gate. So we have this beautiful activation now of each of our wombs, and let me tell you, that is a gift. It supports us in everything else that's going on in the world around us. We also, because Venus is in the very last degrees of Scorpio, she happens to be activating a trine with Jupiter, which is very rapidly approaching exact conjunction with Saturn and the late degrees of Capricorn. So we have all of this energy swirling. We also have the eclipse is also squaring Neptune, as if we didn't already have enough of, eclipse is already a dreamy, a time out of time experience. Then you add the fact that it's in Aesclepius at the crown chakra, the third eye. So that's also very, very much visionary energies. Then you also have that in the sign of Sagittarius, which is all about the path of spirit and waking up to the ultimate truth and the path of enlightenment. So if you're not getting the feeling yet, it's like, wow, there are some big, massive, powerful energies at play. And then you have Chiron that is stationing direct tomorrow. And Chiron is a planet that many astrologers like myself have a great affection and fondness for, because what Chiron is multifaceted, so many things. Chiron ultimately is about the deepest soul healing experience that we can have. And I think Chiron, I've also connected it always with the practice of soul retrieval, which is a common practice in the curanderismo, or the traditional healing paradigms of Old Mexico and New Mexico, across Latin America, as well as in many shamanic and indigenous cultures. Soul retrieval is a concept that acknowledges that each one of us has a portion of ourselves. It's a little different than spirit. It's like, it's the place where the spirit encounters and embodies within the soul. It's the part of ourselves that is affected by this human journey. And when the most tender parts of our soul, the most precious, beautiful aspects of soul, experience a great trauma, some of those parts are so sensitive and tender that they must leave the body and leave the experience and go somewhere safe. So the soul retrieval experience is when a human being, which we all have these kinds of experiences, when you're in a healthy culture, you would have a medicine person, or you would have a kind of a communal process, a sacred ceremony that would have the skill, either collectively or with that individual, to help you call back into yourself these vital elements of soul, these precious parts of yourself, to bring them back into your body, into your psyche, to restore you to wholeness. My feeling is that we have been going through a collective soul retrieval. We, humanity as a species, has been going through a collective soul retrieval. It's been active all through 2020, but particularly as Chiron stationed retrograde in late July through to the present moment when Chiron is stationed direct. So I would invite you all to take a moment to tune in to your heart. What Chiron does is, Chiron is that force that breaks open our hearts to help us remember what it means to be a true human, a feeling being, a being who is in contact with our inner child, in contact with the aspects of ourselves that know how to love fiercely, that human self that is so sacred, that knows how to be fully ensouled and fully present and witnessing and living from our lives in a really authentic way. I would say sometimes Chiron carries that continuum from the deepest anguish, when we really sense and feel the ways that we personally, or in the case of this year, we collectively, or we as a nation, or we as for example, many of us as white people who are white or come from European ancestry, or we appear white, many of us have been doing some really deep soul healing, collective soul retrieval there, where we've seen, we've experienced the deepest grief and anguish and sorrow, as have our sisters and brothers of color, really even more deeply, the places of sorrow and grief. That's one end of the Chiron spectrum, is bearing witness to what is unbearable, what is unspeakable, what is seeing finally what has been broken and the cost of that. So it's being willing to extend and grow our capacity to bear witness to what can be profoundly painful experiences of being human. So that's one end of the spectrum, and the other end, you could say, is ecstatic joy. And of course, sometimes you can think of it, it's not just a line, it's like a circle. So when you go far enough to the end of that circle of just the deepest sadness, grief, and joy, and you find a way to hold presence for the grief of seeing the great darkness in yourself, the places where you've separated from love, or seeing the places where your culture or your community or your species has inflicted damage and pain on others, when you are willing to stand in that place of pain and somehow cultivate a certain degree of presence and compassion, then what can happen is that your heart breaks open. And so then that can open us to states of unexpressible joy and relief and release. So that's the kind of medicine that's available to us now. That is the kind of experience that we can open to now in this eclipse portal. So I'd invite you to ask yourself, how over the last 6 months has your heart been tenderized? Has it been pulverized? Has it been opened wide and deep? What is it inside of you that is woken up, that is now tender, that is beautiful, that is true, that was sleeping until now? How can you honor and dignify and bring love and awareness and even a sense of celebration for all of the places where you've become more whole and more true? And that takes me into the other dynamic of what this solar eclipse is about and what this coming week is about for us. And that is that it's time for us, and we have been learning, to tell the truth about who we are, about how we feel, about what we want, about our deepest yearnings, about what it is in ourselves that can feel sometimes unbearable, and yet we need to be able to accept exactly where we are. Tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. It's time to tell the truth. It's time to stop hiding. Where is it that you know something and you've been afraid to speak it? Maybe to say to the world, this is how I feel. This is what is true for me. You may not agree with this, and this may not go along with the cultural paradigm, the narrative that I'm supposed to buy into, but this is what I see and feel. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Stop hiding. It takes so much energy to hide. It takes so much energy to pretend like everything's okay. That's the other thing I realized with Chiron years ago, is that for many of us, when we go through a Chiron cycle that's personal, a personal transit, oftentimes what happens by the end of that transit is we free up an incredible amount of life force energy, because what happens when we are hiding our wounds, what happens when we pretend like we're okay when really we're feeling so much anguish inside, is that we're using all of our energy to tell a lie about who we are and how we are. And when we finally face that sadness or that grief or that feeling of brokenness and wrongness inside of us, when we finally tend to that with our deep presence, something happens, something is unleashed where we finally come home to who we are. We finally come home to ourselves. And in that process, suddenly we have all of this energy freed up to create, because we're now telling the truth about who we are, and we're now willing to come home to who we are, and we no longer have to spend all of our energy and spin all of our wheels trying to control and manage and keep ourselves safe and keep ourselves contained and pretend. So at this eclipse window, and for the coming week, I'm going to invite you to tell the truth about who you are to yourself first. And the other thing is to know that there's so much grace holding this beautiful eclipse portal. There's so much love. And so also to open your heart into the truth of where you are, who you are, and open also to the place of all the joy that wants to spill out of you and into you. And what is absolutely incredible in your life right now? What have all these open new places in your heart opened you to? What in your life is beauty? What in your life is filled with grace? What in your life feels holy? And I'm just going to leave it with that. So I hope you have a beautiful coming week. And I hope that, remember, this is a new moon portal. So a super new moon portal. So over the coming, especially today, tonight, through tomorrow, is a time for planting seeds. Plant your intentions. Perhaps for the next month, perhaps, for the rest of the year, perhaps for 2021, perhaps begin to plant the seeds of setting clear intentions for how it is that you want to continue to grow and emerge and experience life in the coming year. So this is a beautiful time for intention setting. And begin with gratitude, always begin with gratitude. Take the time to see what is happening, what's unfolding around you right now that is that feels magnificent, that feels good to your soul. So have a beautiful week, and tell the truth. How have you been broken open and become more human and more you? And how can you open your arms, your heart, your soul, your presence to even greater levels of self-love, self-compassion? And how can you let go even more of the places where you've been trying to pretend? And what kinds of new inflows of vitality, of energy, of joy, of creative new life are going to be rushing out of you in the coming days, weeks, months, years, because you're coming home to yourself, because you are being who you are. Okay, so much love to you.